and you're listening to Shawn Rosler on the Coarse Grind Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is episode number 57 of the Coarse Grind Podcast. With you, as always, host creator Shawn Rosler. How the hell is everyone this evening? You know, I've been a Steelers fan my entire life. Not just when the times are good, but when the times are bad too. And believe me, the bad times come. But having been that fan, I'm still gradually piecing together why it took till I was 40, yes, I'm 40, to actually see the Steel City. And shameful though that may be, I did make it. And I stood in frequent awe of both the sights, the sounds, and most importantly, the tastes. There's always been one landmark, though, that I was dying to see. Hearing about it from friends, family, and others, the elusive Church Brew Works called out to me year after year. So it's only natural that on this first visit my wife and I made it there, I not only would not be disappointed, but I'd happen upon tonight's guest. Take me to church, indeed, if you will. Tonight's guest is currently the head of the Church Brew Works in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Church Brew Works opened in '96 in a restored Catholic church and gained national recognition as 2012 Large Brew Pub of the Year at the Great American Brew Fest. Recently, our guest received a gold medal at the 2017 LA International Beer Competition for Pious Monk Dunkel, a Bavarian dark lager. He began brewing at home after a stint in the Navy, just like my father, I might add, in 1995. After years of home brewing, he moved to Virginia Beach with his family and helped to open and brew for 2 breweries in a 5-year span. In 2015, he returned home to Pittsburgh to head up one of the oldest craft breweries in the U.S. He prides himself on his lagers, but also loves American-style IPAs. Our guest found his way home, and I found my way to a home away from home. And now that we're all done uttering a collective "aww," let's get down to this guy's story. Ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between, my guest this evening, the head of Church Brew Works in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, go Pens, go Steelers, Mr. Dan Yarnall. Dan, how are we doing, buddy?
Good. Yeah, indeed. Go Pens. Good victory today.
That was an ass-whipping of astronomical proportions, I must say. That was a straight-up shaming. That's just like, I don't know how they can come back to play the next game. I know they will, but it was very nice. So, how are you doing this evening, sir? Good?
Yeah, absolutely
right. Fantastic. Big things down in Pittsburgh. Wonderful evening for Pittsburgh. So, hopefully this continues that ride into greatness with a wonderful interview. Folks new to the program, folks with shitty short-term memories like me, starters, mains, afters, starters where the guest of the show came from, mains where they're at, and afters, some off-the-cuff questions. But again, as I referenced to David Rosengart in last interview, in 56 interviews, no one has ever sustained a bodily injury from any of my questions, and I don't foresee that happening tonight. So that's good news for everybody involved. So without further ado, Mr. Dan Yarnall, head of Church Brew Works in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Tell me about where and what you grew up eating and drinking.
Well, my mother is an immigrant from Germany, so beer is kind of in my blood. Being raised, actually, I was the only I'm one of 3 children. I'm the only one born in the United States. My 2 sisters are all born in Germany. We moved to the U.S. My folks did in the late 60s. I was born in the early 70s. So my upbringing was all very, very German. I wore lederhosen to kindergarten. You grow up tough. You learn to fight early on. But all of my food was revolved around beer, a lot of pork, and sauerkraut, and things of that nature.
So it's only natural that you landed in kind of a brew gig. I think we quip often that it's in your blood, but in your case, Dan, it's in your goddamn blood.
Absolutely. And I think probably the biggest reason for me being a brewer is being kind of like, because I was part American and most of my relatives being in German, it was, I think that was kind of like the jib that they would give me all the time, especially in the early 70s or, the 70s and 80s when American beer was 100% crap.
Yeah.
It was absolutely like American beer is crap. How dare you? And even before I was drinking it, I took offense to it because this is my country, and how dare you insult it?
Sure.
So I almost got into brewing, almost as a kind to prove my German relatives that hey, American beer can do
sure.
good things. So luckily for me, the craft beer kind of movement came around, and just like a lot of people in the mid '90s, I kind of jumped on the bandwagon with it, and luckily I kind of wrote it into a profession.
Yeah, so and that brings up an interesting question I've not been able to ask before, because you're the first, brewer of true German immigrant descent that I've had on. How is the American movement of the microbrew, of the, craft brew, how is that viewed in, say, a traditional country like Germany?
Now, I think that early on, from the '90s, even in the early 2000s, it was viewed with a lot of skepticism. It wasn't really thought of as very seriously, and up until a few years ago, the Germans kind of discarded it. But I think now, especially, I've saw a lot of Brewmaster friends that live in Germany that brew there, and I think they view us. Even though they probably won't admit it on air or anything like that, on equal level for the most part. They see that we're doing as good as work as anyone else in the world, and it's absolutely the truth.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I have to imagine there's got to be, because wasn't there was a slew of like German breweries who were buying out American breweries. Like, I think they almost kind of caught on. They're like, well, we can't have this. We better own them first. I'm trying to think of the ones that picked it up.
Like InBev, they're Belgian owned, just one country over removed, and I believe there's a few conglomerates from Germany that buying up some of the craft breweries in the U.S. Heineken, but that's also Dutch. But can't think of one exact that has German offhand, but I know what you're kind to say.
Yeah.
What you mean. But it's just for the most part is from where I'm concerned, just on kind of like the brewer level, they definitely hold us in very high regards now. They don't understand hops as much, because Germans think that like kind of a lager or a pilsner is really hoppy to them. That's kind of like their imperial IPA. But for us, that's it's more of an American thing than German.
Sure, and I mean that's a whole other topic. And a lot of times when I have the chefs and the creators of food, there's a whole other set of topics. But when we talk beer, I think we have to give pause and we have to look at hops as an American trend. For a while, I was this big hooked on double, triple IPAs. How many hops can I fit in my mouth? And I got burnt out quickly. Is that going to stop anytime soon? Do you see maybe a little bit of a downtick in the, how many hops can I fit in a pint glass? Or is that...
Probably not. I was just recently in Washington, D.C. at the craft beer conference, and we've in the craft beer environment, we've definitely enjoyed an incline in sales ever since the mid '90s. Like always, double-digit growth, and I think now it's pretty much plateaued as far as our sales are right now, with the exception of IPAs. Hoppy beers are still in growth; they're still moving. Everything else, like sours and lagers, they've all kind of plateaued. But hoppy beers, they're still basically in demand. With that being said, I think the IPAs have kind of changed in the United States, meaning that before, like 10 years ago, the IPAs were super bitter, not as floral, but now it's a lot of whirlpool hops, a lot of dry hopping, to where getting a lot more aromatics versus the bitterness. So you're getting more flavor than that bite.
So there again, as a brew master, and believe me, people, when I walked into Church Brew, first of all, it took my breath away, the sights alone. But then when I got the flight, I literally I think you have 6 or 7 on that flight. I forget how many. I know there was
I think 8.
Oh, shit. Okay.
And we usually have 13 to 14 beers on tap.
Oh, my God.
With cask included, but I think 8 is typical if I'm not screwing up in some manner, not having beers on in time to get them on tap.
Yeah, no, and you know what? I almost said 8. I didn't want to overshoot it, but I'm glad to hear that, because that means I wasn't totally blacked out yet. But, like, you know, I'm tasting these. They're amazing. So, as a brewmaster, to the, you know, folks listening who like beer, who like craft beer, who might not understand what dry hopping is, what is dry hopping compared to, like, standard addition of hops to a beer?
So, when you take a beer such as an IPA, when you're done trying to extract all the sugars out of the grain that you can, and you're sending them into your kettle, and you have, say, you know, what we do here at church, we accumulate 20 barrels, which is approximately a little over 600 gallons of beer. We started boil, and we started adding hops. Right at the beginning of the boil, if you're adding your hops there, those are usually your bittering units. That's what gives you your bite. But right at the end, we start using more aromatic hops, which is like commonly referred to like as a whirlpool. Mm-hmm. Once that's all done and it gets sent to the fermenter, we add the yeast to it. We can actually add additional hops, which is called dry hopping. Some brewers like to add it actually during the fermentation process, and some actually wait until after the fermentation occurs. I prefer to do it during fermentation, and really the whole basis of that is zero bitterness, that bite in the back of your tongue. You don't get any of that whatsoever. So if you ever drink an IPA and you stick the glass to your nose, when you're getting all those citrusy pineapple, tangerine flavors that you're just smelling, that's all from dry hop. That's breaking down the essential oils in that hop, and they're just literally laying on top of that pint of beer, so you can smell them, and then you're getting a lot of that flavor as well without that bite.
Follow. See that? You learn something new every day. I know we were joking when we stopped in. I brew 1 5-gallon bucket every year in my basement, but learning some of these higher end concepts, it truly is. It goes beyond science and art. It like encompasses them both, because there's so many facets to this. There's books upon books upon books. And tonight, for example, I was looking to pair a beer with tacos, flank steak taco. It took me longer, exponentially, than it would take me to go into, say, a wine store and just grab a bottle of wine, because there's so many different elements to it. And I think, just the fact that one element like a hop can be added in so many different ways, that just makes it sexy.
So, what did you pair with it?
I actually ended up... You're going to put me on the spot for this shit. I just ended up getting 2 Corona Tall Boys, because I'm like, I was running out of time, and I'm like, this doesn't work. I'm looking at all the, cool Dos Equis Ambers, like the ones that and I'm just like, fuck it. I'm going to just go. And
well, it's funny that you say that, because I would have told you, I said I would probably go with a Mexican lager, or I would have went with kind of a spicy IPA, because a lot of that spice, and especially depending upon your spice level on the tacos, either of them would have worked out perfectly.
Right, to counterbalance it. Do you realize how much I was actually, hesitating to say that in front of you, Dan? I realize I don't know you that well, but I had this hesitation of pure and utter shame. So thanks for putting me on that. So, in any case, here's this, German immigrant family, German immigrant to the U.S. turns U.S. microbrewer. But getting back to your childhood, so, we talked about the drink, we talked about the influence of beer, but is there any food or drink, in your case for sure, that, creates that nostalgic pang for you of your childhood? Is there any that you look back to and go, God, if only I could have this again?
I wouldn't say I have that again, because I think a lot of this, because I'm fortunate enough that my folks are still here. both of my sisters and their family live here in Pittsburgh, so we still do Sunday afternoon meals all the time. So we still live our culture. We do it all the time. So we have it all 24/7. As far as flavors, like growing up, I just remember like the roulade and all the pork, the sauerkraut, all those big hearty German dishes that that I eat kind of not necessarily on a daily basis, but I think that's kind of like my go-to, those salty, sour kind of dishes.
Yeah, absolutely. And now looking back at that upbringing, and obviously you landed in what could only be described as like the pinnacle of a brewing position. I mean, you're really living the brewmaster's dream right now. Who do you think, if there is anybody, there might not be anybody, made you want to do this? I know you mentioned the whole, like, you wanted to kind of thumb your nose at the German purists, but was there somebody you looked to or somebody who influenced your flavor of beer that like really made you want to go down this path?
I think I have a lot of influences as far as like brewers that I look up to and respect. But if I look back on one person that said that I'm a brewer because of this, it's my uncle. So that's my mother's brother, Dieter Linke from Karlsruhe, Germany. He's basically the one. He's really the one that kind of like that was really pushing me. Kind of like more or less making fun of American beer and kind of stuff like that. Yeah, really got me into beer. Every time he'd come to visit in the United States, he'd always, give me a 6-pack of beer, even when I was 16 or something like that. It's like, hey, this is what real beer tastes like. Don't drink that American crap.
Nice.
And so Dieter was definitely my huge inspiration. That I can look to and say I'm a brewer because of that person.
Sweet. That's awesome. And it's also doubly awesome that the guy's name was Dieter. Like, it's not just a Steve. Like, I mean, you're selling it here. You're selling it. Well done.
It was his name was Dieter Wolfgang, so it's
Jesus.
Even double.
Definitely. Yeah. So, you go off, you do your stint in the Navy. Which, again, as I mentioned, my old man was Navy. He was USS Orion, stationed on a nuke sub. 6'6", so he's got a lot of scar tissue in his forehead. That was before they had they had the vertical thing. But so you go and you do this, and you come back, and you're doing years of just home brewing. When was it in that home brewing stint, if you will, that you realized, like, wow, not only do I like this, but I'm really good at this, and I could make a run at it? Was there a moment?
I wouldn't say necessarily there was kind of an era for me. There wasn't a moment. There's a bar that's still around here, just outside of Pittsburgh, pretty close to where I used to live. It was called House of 1,000 Beers. Ooh. And this was kind of like, this was probably 2003, somewhere in that time frame when it opened up. And I started hanging out there, and this was probably the only place around that really started like getting into craft when everybody was kind of getting off the bandwagon after that whole big, the 90s implosion, and they were really gunning for it. And I kind of became like the resident nerd there, where anytime they would get something in, because they would always get contraband beer that they weren't supposed to be selling, that they'd bring it in and they'd sell it somehow, and me and all my buddies would sit around and we'd drink it and we'd try it. And like I said, I was kind of like the resident nerd. And then finally got to a point where I just thought to myself, I was like, I need to start making money on this. I was like, I can do this. I know I can do this. So when my wife, she was enlisted in the Navy, got out, finished her degree and went back in as an officer, and then got stationed down in Virginia. And then we all moved down there, and I had the opportunity. I just said, why not? I mean, let's, what else do I have to lose? So I made a lot of mistakes early on. Sure. Probably came out with some pretty bad beer, but I learned from it, and I moved on, and I kept at it. So
yeah, and you said two 2 gigs down there, but then in 2015, back he came to Pittsburgh, and here we are in Church Brew, current day.
Yep.
That's amazing, and I truly can't sell this enough to folks listening, to folks maybe driving through Pittsburgh or going to Pittsburgh to celebrate what's certain to be the Stanley Cup championship. You see what I did there? Snuck that in. When you walk it's the beautiful thing is that it's somewhat unassuming outside compared to what you get to inside. My wife and I had an Uber driver, and he tried to drop us off there's an Iron City brewing place right near there, isn't there?
Like almost across the street, the old original place that was built in 1865, yeah.
Yeah, so he tries to drop us off, and I'm like, no, dude, it's not a church. I know this is a church. Oh, you don't understand. This is what it says. I'm like, buddy, listen. And so he finally loops it around, he brings it back, and I see it. And I'll never forget, it was just like a sci-fi movie, like trying to get into the TARDIS or whatever. We're walking around, we're like, shit, where do we go in? And here's this young lady who I later found out to be one of your waitstaff, getting on her bike, and I said, where do we go in? And she points to, what would be the typical Catholic church door, like, the one right there, you walk through it. And she points to it, and I remember grabbing the handle and opening it up. I swear to God I heard angels when I looked in. It was that immense and just awe-inspiring. People, when you see the inside of this place, I have pictures of just the interior. I mean, it's awe-inspiring. And then when you go in, you find out a guy like Dan Yarnall is brewing, would you say, 18 different types of beer?
I think we normally have 12, 13, 14, depending on the season. That's what we usually have on with cask beers, yeah.
I mean, it truly, honestly, I don't plug a lot of vacay, traveler spot bullshit on here, but this is one of them, man. This is one of them. If you're there, you've got to check it out. So here you are now, present day, Dan, and you're making all these wonderful types of beers. Where do you currently look to, in mind, heart, soul, wherever, to find inspiration for new beers? How do you keep it fresh, if you will?
Well, I think that I can always have the philosophy what is old becomes new again. So being one of the older places, especially craft beer in the U.S., I kind of stick to the old guns. Like you said before, I kind of pride myself on lagers. Not a lot of craft breweries do lagers. I mean, and the biggest reason for that is it takes a lot of time. Typically, you can turn an ale around in 2-3 weeks. Lager takes 6 weeks minimum. So it takes a lot of tank space up. Takes a lot of time. Takes a lot of love and passion to do those. Those are kind of like my heart and soul. As far as new beers and stuff like that, I kind of watch current trends and we try to keep up with some of these things. I've spent most of my career trying to keep beer as clean and bright and clear as possible, but now everybody wants these super cloudy orange juice looking IPAs, so I have to kind of learn that all over again. But as far as inspirations, I just try to keep doing what I do and do it well, because you have to kind of stay on top of that as much as possible.
That's just it. And okay, so you put my feet to the fire before with regards to what Mexican beer I paired with my flank steak. I'm going to ask you, have you used blood orange in the past 365 days?
Yes, I have.
Oh, damn it, Dan. Damn it, Daniel.
As a matter of fact, our flagship beer, or our flagship IPA, Thunder Hop, we're coming up with different variations on those, and apparently we're not very creative when it comes to names. So our New England style IPA is Thunder Cloud, and our fruit blood orange infused IPA is Thunder Juice. So like I said, we're not very inventive, but I think when you hear the name, you pretty much know what you're getting.
I mean, you could go Thunder Lips and invoke some Rocky action, but that's Philadelphia, and we don't want that.
I think I might steal that.
Yeah, hey, there you go. Copyrighted here. I got it on air, buddy. But no, and here's the thing. I love blood orange. I personally love the blood orange ghost, the whole like salty, citrusy kind of thing. But again, that almost turned into a hop thing where it's like, oh, how much of this shit can we fit in one beer? And how many times can we say this? But then again, if you've got someone like Church Brew Works, Dan Yarnall, you know you're getting a quality beer that's using it properly.
I hope so.
No? and there again, I can speak from experience. I can almost guarantee that. Looking back now, over the course of Church Brew Works and the brew entities before that, what would you say is your baby? I mean, I know we were talking about kids earlier tonight. We're like, shit, we got to put the noisemakers to bed. But like, what would you say beer-wise is your true baby? What is the one beer you're most proud of?
So actually, I was partaking on some of this earlier this evening. So in Germany, there's a town called Bamberg, and in Bamberg, they kind of centralize a lot of the breweries. They specialize in one style, and it's smoked lagers. Oh. So hundreds of years ago, all beer was smoked because kind of the process in which you malt the grains that you use. Now they're in kilns, but before there was all open fire. So the open fire would permeate into the grain. That grain would eventually translate that smoke into the beer, and it definitely tastes like drinking a glass of bacon or pork or something like that, or a campfire. Right. So actually, recently, I did a collaboration with my old beer bar, House of 1,000 Beers, and we did a smoked double bock.
Oh my god!
And I used 100% smoked malt from Bamberg. I had it shipped in. We put it on tap, and right after a big conference, we had some guys from some brewmasters from Germany come in, and I told them, I was like, oh, I'm my parents from Germany. I'm the brewer here. I need you to try my smoked beer. And they kind of looked at me very skeptical. They think, no American can make this beer. Not only did they love it, they also invited me to fly to Bamberg, Germany, to brew a beer with them.
Stop. What?
Yeah. So hopefully in the near future, this happens. So my smoked double bock, which is called 200% fit, is definitely my pride and joy. That's definitely my baby.
Damn.
So
wow. And why would it not be? Holy shit, man. That's impressive.
Thank you.
I mean, that's taking it back. That's taking it back to the roots of why you started, and then like adding 200% to it. Like, not only did you prove them wrong, but now they're inviting you back over. That's
right. So, I mean, I think I was super proud when I finally got a chance to come back to my hometown and brew here professionally, and then to go one step further and actually go back to my parents' original country. That would be a dream come true.
That's heavy. That's awesome, man. So we asked you the easy question to answer, your most proud moment, if you will. Under the condition that we're not even making eye contact right now, can you talk about what might be your biggest oopsie daisy of all time?
Oh, I got plenty of those. Yeah, that's no problem. And I think this goes back on one of the most difficult parts of being a brewer is that you have to not only make them well, you have to make beers that you wouldn't necessarily drink yourself.
Fair enough. Yep.
You have to brew these beers because if I only made beers that I would want to drink, I'd probably be out of business pretty soon. And it's so the one particular one. Beach Brewing, Bullhead Brown Ale. It was just a very kind of weird hybrid American British brown ale that we thought that the consumer would want. We were completely wrong, and it was definitely my first brewery, and it wasn't good. I think it was discontinued shortly thereafter. But it Wasn't good at all.
Just wasn't up to Dan Yarnall caliber, shall we say? Shall we say?
Yeah, even back then, it wasn't. We made a couple beers that we thought the market would respond to it. This was still kind of in the earlier days of craft, where you kind of go in gently with these what we call ramp up beers, or kind of like beers that people wouldn't be too afraid of. That when they would jump ship from drinking macro brews into micro, it'd be an easy transition. But I think we just didn't deliver well. It wasn't wasn't a good beer. It
was no Sam Smith's Nut Brown Ale.
No. I think that's probably what we tried to do. But, we didn't pull it off too well.
No, and to be fair, on a much lesser scale, I had an Irish Stout kit. The tradition as it goes every year is that my wife hooks me up with a yearly beer kit for Christmas, and I run with it, and I've got some books, and I've added some stuff over the years, and it's been interesting, ginger, apricot, that kind of thing. It's been cool, but I got an Irish Stout, and I went to really kind of dark chocolate it, and I went a little too dark and not enough chocolate, and it literally tasted like you were licking the top of an aluminum can. With the whole alkaline thing, and I looked at her at one point. I said, "This isn't good, is it?" And she couldn't even hide it. She's like, I'm like, okay, all right. You just kind of tuck your tail between the legs and wait for the next year to happen. To be fair, though, I put it on the shelf, and about 2 months later, it developed a little more, and we started getting some bottles of Framboise Lambic, and we kind of cut it a little bit, and it was delicious. But you kind of had to cover it. So, there's a little evening of the accounts there, just so that you don't feel too alone in admitting that, because boy, oh boy, did that suck for me. Just putting that out there. So, looking at brewing overall, and you've obviously got your finger on the pulse, and this is such a cool era to be into brewing in general, because you get a free newspaper every time you go into some place that doesn't totally suck for brewing, whether it be is it Brew Street News, I want to say is one, and there's like a handful of others that, like, as soon as I go in, I get the glare from my wife, like, don't you bring that shit home, and I'm bringing home like a stack of them, like, I'm gonna read all these, and I never get a chance to, but it's a cool age of information that a lot of us can be in. Asking somebody who knows, like yourself, sir, what is going to be the next big thing? What's waiting around the corner for us as beer consumers, beer lovers, beer drinkers?
So, as far as styles are concerned?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. So, interestingly, so every year when I go to CBC, the Craft Beer Conference, I think that the brewers kind of get together and they kind of give everybody what they'd like to see or what's getting ramped up, if it's going to be a session IPA. And every single time that these conferences wrap up, we always kind of have an idea of, like, what was going to happen. A couple of years ago was like these kettle sours. Like 2 years ago, it was a lot of the dry hop IPAs, using different techniques to kind of get better aromatics. So the one that just wrapped up last month, the big push is for like overly hopped German style pilsners. So they're trying to get into pushing these type of beers. So you're going to see a lot of it. I think New Belgium just come out with it. Great Lakes I've seen coming out with their turnstile or turntable pilsner. So you're going to see a lot more of these aggressively hopped pilsners. Victory has had one in Prima Pils. I think they were on the forefront for a long time. That's one of my favorite pilsners of all time. So you'll probably see a lot more of these lighter hoppy style. So I think gone are the days, at least for now, are these 12%, triple IPAs and these super aggressive things. Sours are always going to have their little niche in the market. People that search those out, they're always going to search them out and pay top dollar for. But I think for the most mainstream, it's definitely going to be these hoppy pilsners.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to lie. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it was all about the double, all about the triple, all about the crazy, like, how much booze and hop can you fit in a bottle? And now, perhaps it's my old age sensitivity kicking in. But, I just want that session. I want that comfortable feel. I think. I don't know. Does that sound lame, or does that sound like...
No, absolutely not, because I think that, when craft was starting out, I think they were purposely trying not to compete with Bud and Miller, and not they're trying to sheer away from those type of beers. They're trying to go the completely opposite of what those beers represent. And I think it's kind of a nice thing that we're trying to give you a better version of something that everybody's been drinking for a very long time. This is what it should taste like. Maybe it's a little hoppier, but it's nice to start cutting in on that demographic in that market.
Yeah, and it's not that hard to dip to that side. Like, I know, even personally, I have classifications of, like, mower beers, session beers, and, like, one and done beers. And, for my session beers, I've been trying to stick to something more like there's a Pilsner I absolutely adore, and I'm pretty sure it's from Germany without looking. Walter's Pilsner. It's like $19 for a case. Not a lot considerably, and it's the same kind of content and everything. There's just so much more body and just love to it, I think. Carlsberg is another one that I just like. I can drink on Carlsberg all day, and it feels like you're being almost more honest to yourself than if you go and get your 30-pack of Busch Light, which, let's be honest, if you're up in a tree stand looking to kill some animals, that's a great answer.
And I think it's great, and I think that the longer that the U.S. is kind of along this, the more that we can, or the closer that we can get to those style of German Pilsners. The only knock on those is it takes so long to get over here, and usually by the time they get here, they're already 2, 3, 4, or 5 months old.
Right.
But you can get nice fresh representation from good craft breweries here. But it's obviously the Germans have been doing it for a hot minute, so they kind of know what they're doing.
Yeah.
But they're just excellent representations of the style, and you're absolutely right. It just it's honest, good beer.
You feel better about yourself. It's not like you're running a marathon. Let's be honest. It's not like you're doing anything good for yourself necessarily, but it's not as dishonest as, well, here's your 30 case of Hams Light, enjoy it. Like, okay. Not that I don't have one of those downstairs right now for when I'm mowing. I might. But
Hey, I drink PBR on occasion, so don't feel bad.
There you go. But like you said there, and it's a perfect emissary voice for the local brewer. This is where, if you like that stuff from over there, get it fresh from over here. I think that's an important message for sure. So, here you are doing that work in the here and now. So, again, folks, Church Brew Works in Pittsburgh, go there. Go to your local brewer. What's next for you, Dan Yarnall? Obviously, you guys are doing amazing things down there. I love it. I can't wait to come back. What is the 5-year plan for Church Brew Works, for Dan Yarnall?
That's a good question. I think that craft beer is kind of not necessarily at a crossroads, but this is everybody's kind of holding their breath right now just to kind of see how everything plays out. I think that kind of regional brewers like what Church is, I definitely, and especially brew pub settings, we're definitely safe. But with the way that InBev is kind of moving in, picking up places like 10 Barrel, like Wicked Weed, we're all trying to hold our breath and see how everything plays out. But as far as Church, we're just going to keep chugging along, doing what we do. We just got a new canning line, and so we, hopefully here in the next 6-8 months, we'll be releasing cans, because that's obviously the new hot thing, and then I can take my bottling line and put it on wheels and push it in the middle of Liberty Avenue and crash it and go all completely Office Space on it, because I hate that thing. But
with that paper jam. Who the fuck?
Yeah. So obviously canning is in our future, and they just kind of do what we do best. European style lagers, and just trying to be inventive with new styles, and just trying to make our customers happy.
Yeah, and I mean, definitely for what it's worth, from the one-time visitor that you're talking to right now, that European vibe was just inherent and just all over the place in there, and obviously the flavor of the beers did perfect tribute to that. So I mean, you guys are doing what I perceive to be everything that you want to be doing at this point, and you should, by all means, stay the course. Stay the course.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. So that's starters, that's mains, and now for the afters. A couple off-the-wall questions, Dan. Hopefully you're sitting down, strapped in, relatively safe for the time being.
Mm-hmm.
All right, very good, sir. I'm standing in your, typically this question reads, kitchen. Let's call it, I'm standing in your brew station, if you will. What music would I hear?
I'm a big Violent Femmes fan.
Oh my God! I saw Gano in '96 at Blue Mew, where we live currently. I'm
nice.
a huge Femmes fan myself. Awesome.
Yeah, because I'm a child of the '80s. Dead Milkmen, Tom Waits, Screaming Jay Hawkins. Let's see. Yeah, Dead Kennedys, Misfits.
Beautiful.
A lot of the skate punk stuff from the '80s.
Holy.
So
that's
awesome.
awesome.
Usually what I play.
That's the first, actually, 57 episodes. That's the first mention of the Femmes I've ever had.
Really?
That's sad, isn't it? Like
that's usually my go-to on Pandora.
Oh my God, definitely. All right, you're gonna be stranded on a deserted island. Go with me here. I'm not actually shipping you out to one, so don't worry. I'm not coming down to take you away. And you can only take 3 food or food type items. These can include beverages with you. What would they be and why?
So I can pick all beverages?
Oh, correct, sir. Absolutely.
That's a good question. I mean, it's as far as like food, it definitely has to be probably schnitzel. That's probably like one of my
Nice.
favorite things to eat. Drink, I would definitely have to go. Just not to plug my own brewery here, like our Celestial Gold. It's a nice, easy drinking German Pilsner, something you can drink all the time. And then, I'm a big mac and cheese fan, so I guess we gotta go with that. Just simple stuff, because if you go like over the top or anything like that, you'd probably get annoyed by it. So you gotta go kind of middle of the road, I guess.
This is what I love about this question. You get the serious, food demons on that question, and they're like, well, we'd have to sustain the animals, blah, 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 blah. You get the beer drinkers, we're like, fuck it, give me some schnitzel, some beer, and some mac and cheese. I forget, oh no, I do remember, I told my wife interviewed me for the 20th episode, and I said beef, bourbon, and beer. She comes back, she's like, oh my God, you're gonna get colon cancer, blah, blah, blah. I said, I'm on a goddamn island, what does it matter to me at this point? So schnitzel, Celestial Gold mac and cheese is honestly, like, I feel such a brotherhood with you right now. I'm not even gonna lie. That's delicious. I love it. Okay. Have you ever heard of Melanie Denea before? My Last Supper.
No.
Okay. So it is a coffee table book. She actually did 2. The next one's called The Next Course. And it's a coffee table book. Beautiful artwork. And each one has 50 chefs, and I drew some of the inspiration for the show 3+ years ago from her book. And it's literally 5 questions for each chef, and they all center around their Last Supper. What would it be, who would be there, and so on. And so, Dan Yarnall, from your Brewmaster perspective, you're checking out tomorrow, you got one last meal, what would it be, what would you drink, who would be there?
Wow. Yeah, that's heavy. I forgot that whole deserted island thing. Actually, I'm a big pho fan, or pho, or however you pronounce it.
Pho.
Yeah, it's if you should have spelled it PHA if you wanted us to pronounce it correctly. But I'm just gonna say pho because that's
Pho.
how it, So, probably be that.
Yeah.
Who would be there? That's interesting. How about here? We'll go historically. JFK, Lee Harvey Oswald, and Jack Ruby.
Oh shit! He's going for the big reveal.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask some questions here. And then what was it? So we're eating. And then what's the final one? Drinking.
Eating pho. You're clearly dissecting one of history's greatest mysteries. Well done, by the way. Very selfless of you. And what would you be drinking?
Man, well, if it's pho or pho, it has to be something like that. And it's usually like Pilsner related, but I guess since it's your last dinner, I'd probably go with, so I'm going to throw caution to the wind here. It'll probably be like a bourbon barrel-aged imperial stout, something big and heavy-duty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not going to have to wake up and deal with it in the morning.
Right. So it's just, I'm not, no one's going to be offended that I'm not pairing the courses properly. But,
Exactly.
So.
Wow. I love the fact that you went historic on that. That's so brilliant. That's so beer guy. It's like, no, I'm not going out like this. I'm going to at least know who did it and why.
Right.
Well played. And sadly, finally, the last question. It's the simplest and yet the most complex. What is food or drink to you in a single word?
In a single word?
One word.
Oh, this is going to sound so pretentious. Breathing.
Oh, breathing. Oh, okay. I was going to say breathing. Damn, that got dark quick.
No, like breathing. Yeah,
I love it.
So to me, obviously, it just my entire life is kind of centered around, and really, and even growing up, I always thought that I would end up as a chef versus a brewer.
Yeah.
Because it's really they're very very similar. You're just pairing flavors and and taking raw ingredients and turning it into something that's hopefully appetizing. But it's to me it's like with beer especially it's don't tell my wife. But it's usually the last thing I think of when I go to the first thing I think of. I mean, it sounds like but I'm not an AA or anything like that. It's just this is my life. This is the reason I'm on this planet is to make beer. So
yeah, I'm not an alcoholic. They go to meetings. I'm just a drunk. So man, right on. I love that. That's actually the first mention of breathing as an answer in again 57 episodes. I don't mean to reference that, but that's unique, and god damn it, that's spot on. And for what it's worth, from again the one-time visitor that I am, you were kind enough to meet with me and accept my kind words on your product, man, and you guys are doing some amazing work down there at Church Brew. So well done. Please keep it up, because I'd love to come back.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much.
Right on, man. Thank you so much, Dan. And again, you're churchbrew.com, 3525 Liberty Ave in Pittsburgh, the Steel City, 412-688-8200. Patio Fest 2017 coming up?
Yeah, I think that's next week. We're going to be releasing our coconut stout.
Woo!
And then, opening up the patio where we have the hop vines are growing. They're probably about 10 feet high by now, so climbing up, and it's a good time.
Beautiful, beautiful, buddy. Well, Dan, thank you so much again for being part of the show. Appreciate it more than you know, and God willing, the wife and I will be back down soon to see you.
All right, sounds good. Thank you so much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been episode number 57 of the Coarse Grind Podcast. With you, as always, Shawn Rosler, and our guest this evening, Mr. Dan Yarnall, the head brewmaster behind the iconic Church Brew in Pittsburgh. Our producer, as always, has been Johnny Leland Robinson, the Reverend Johnny Lamoria. Be sure to check out his appearance coming up in the 2017 Fringe Fest in Scranton. Next episode will be number 58. You won't want to miss it. Stay tuned.
What